Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobby Capucci, and this is Daily Drop number 408. What's up, everybody? So before I popped into the studio to record this segment, I was watching this program about John Gotti and his rise to power. And there was a quick little segment where they were discussing RICO and how RICO was used to go after John Gotti, the Gambino family, and the mafia as a whole. And Michael Chertoff, who was a prosecutor at the time, who helped Giuliani prosecute the mafia, was explaining how they used RICO and how they painted the whole entire operation as one gigantic criminal enterprise. And as I'm sitting here watching it, I'm shaking my head in agreement, not because they tagged RICO onto the Gambino family, but because the same exact situation unfolded with the Epstein criminal enterprise. And I don't know where RICO should be applied if not here, folks. I mean, this case is screaming at the top of its lungs to be classified as a RICO case. And with the maneuvering of Mrs. Serpentino and her legal team, you would think that the prosecution is going to get tired of it pretty soon. And I think that once they really blast off and unleash all of the charges that would be in store for her and the co-conspirators with the RICO case, then I think that Ghislaine Maxwell and her ridiculous requests will come to a screeching halt. Because once that RICO case is laid out, she's going to have a lot bigger problems. So, watching that Mafia documentary a little bit ago, the John Gotti documentary that I was watching, it was just quite obvious that the same concept behind the organizations was used, meaning the leadership structure, and how tasks were divvied up, and how tasks were carried out, and how there were lieutenants and there was an underboss, basically. It's all parallel. And if Keith Raniere and R. Kelly are both slapped with RICO charges, how in the world have RICO charges not been unleashed yet here? Now, we know that Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested for these alleged crimes. We know that Jean-Luc Brunel is also sitting in the clink tonight in Paris for crimes related to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist or some sort of great detective or anything like that, but it should not be too hard to tie all of this together for the authorities and to have a huge, gigantic RICO case. And when I say a RICO case, I don't just mean the people that were directly involved in the day-to-day operations. I'm talking about anyone who benefited financially as well. All ill-gotten gains. Every single person who was getting money through one of these shell companies or one of these backdoor deals, they should be wrapped up in this RICO case too. And I don't care how far it reaches, right? Because guess what? It wouldn't matter if you and all of your friends and your associates and your business partners were wrapped up in this huge conspiracy and you were the genesis of it and you were the one who distributed all of those funds. Everyone would have their funds frozen. Everybody would be subpoenaed. Everybody would be looked at like a suspect and everybody would be treated as such. So I don't think it's too much to ask that the most elite, so-called, amongst us are treated the very same way when they're caught up in a RICO case. Because that's what this is, right? This wasn't just one person involved in this. This wasn't just one person, Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell or Jean-Luc Brunel, who was able to make this thing go. They had to work as a team. It's like, like it was a sailing competition, right? It doesn't matter if you're, the best at what you do, say steering the ship. If you don't have somebody who can put up the sail, well, the ship really isn't going to go anywhere now, is it? So everybody is an integral part. Everybody has their job to make sure that the ship is sailing. And it is no different in a criminal enterprise. And that is exactly what Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel were running. Jeffrey Epstein's dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in a federal detention center. And Jean-Luc Brunel is eating the equivalent of whatever the French have for bologna sandwiches in their facilities. Now, the co-conspirators are still not named in any indictments that have been unsealed, but it's rather obvious that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel were engaged in a conspiracy together, working with Jeffrey Epstein. And I wonder how long before we see those kind of conspiracy charges slapped on Maxwell and Brunel. We have reports now coming out of France that it was Virginia Roberts and her information that led to Jean-Luc Brunel being arrested in France. So, once again, Virginia is proving an integral part of the investigation as she continues to try and bring these people to justice for the crimes that she says they committed against her. And she has been steadfast in this pursuit. And once again, we see that her courageousness, her coming forward, and her standing tall is leading to real-life results on the ground. So that's why I find it laughable when people are like, well, what do you think you're going to do? Get these people arrested? Well, they're certainly not going to get arrested if you sit on your computer or your cell phone and just fire off snarky-ass remarks. How about you quit being a fan and get involved? Because short of that, you should probably just stay on the sidelines and shut up. Because you're seeing real results. You're seeing movement. You're seeing these people who were involved with Epstein in various capacities start to feel the pinch. And the fact that the French authorities, as well as the American authorities, are using information that Virginia has provided to them to go after these prosecutions should be all you really need to know about what they think about her credibility as well. So let's jump into this article by the Daily Mail and see just exactly what's going on over there in France and how Virginia, speaking with the authorities over there and providing them information, led to Jean-Luc Brunel, the third head of the three heads of the leadership cabal of the Epstein enterprise, getting arrested. Headline: Exclusive. Jeffrey Epstein survivor Virginia Roberts provided key evidence to French police to secure arrest of late pedophile's model agent friend, Jean-Luc Brunel, charged with multiple, I repeat, multiple counts of rape. Now, let's remember, all right? Let's take a little trip back in history real quick, shall we? This isn't just the first person to speak out about Jean-Luc Brunel and his behavior and his alleged conduct. Fisia Husman has spoken out. We had the documentary in the late 80s. Plenty of people have come out and went on the record about the scumbag that Jean-Luc Brunel is. So this isn't something that is just like popped up out of the blue, where there's no documentation about this. These are standing allegations, decades long, and I really don't think that there's much disputing them, okay? Now he's going to have his chance to dispute them in a court of law, just like Ghislaine Maxwell. And finally, for the first time ever in this case, at the very least, that's about to occur. Because up until now, that shit wasn't going to happen. You really think the government was going to really pursue this case if Virginia and the other girls who have come forward didn't take their case to the people directly? Hell no, the government would have tried to stash this and hide it because guess what? It made them look bad. And the government can't have that, right? The government can't be made to look bad. They'd rather bury this shit instead. But that wasn't going to occur this time. And these victims turned survivors, well, they decided to flip the tables, folks. And they decided to grab the narrative by the tail and give it a swing. This article was authored by Peter Allen. Jeffrey Epstein survivor Virginia Roberts has provided enough evidence to French officials for the late pedophile's model agent friend, Jean-Luc Brunel, to be charged with multiple rapes, DailyMail.com can reveal. Now remember, it was Jean-Luc Brunel, according to Virginia's account, who provided Jeffrey Epstein with triplets, 12-year-old triplets, for him to do, I don't even want to think what he did to them, okay, as a birthday present. Now, if that's some of the behavior that Brunel was engaging in as far as his relationship with Epstein and otherwise, then this dude is certainly a candidate, in my opinion, for chemical castration and burial under the prison after being convicted. Because you can't rehabilitate a monster like this. What, are you going to let him back out into society so he can go back out and get involved in it all over again? Nah, guy like this needs to be arrested, locked up, and put underneath the prison, in my opinion, once he is convicted. Virginia Roberts, 37, is now the key witness in the prosecution of Brunel, 75, after claiming that both him and the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, 60, used her as their sex slave. So this is pretty significant stuff, right? It's not only the American authorities that have come forward now and said, look, we believe what Virginia's saying here. We believe her account of this story, and we believe that this sort of thing did occur with Jeffrey Epstein and his minions and friends. So it adds a lot more credibility to what we see going on here. I mean, as if we need it anymore, right, from what we've read. But for people that might not be paying attention to the case, they see now that multiple cases are opened on multiple continents. And, well, it goes a long way for the credibility of the witness. And with all of the receipts that have been provided and all of the accounts that we have heard, I mean, how much more evidence is needed before these people are all arrested? Now, don't get me wrong, this is a good start, right? Hardly anyone believed that Maxwell or Brunel were going to get arrested. Yet here we are in the very beginnings of 2021, and both are sitting in a jail cell. Now all that's left is the core four. Let's see them get wrapped up. Let's see Indyke and Khan get wrapped up. And then, well, we'll be off to the races. But with Brunel being arrested in France like this, and Virginia providing an ample amount of evidence, obviously, it certainly looks like Brunel is in serious legal jeopardy here. And I have a sneaking suspicion that more witnesses are going to come forward, and there will be more victims, unfortunately, that also come out and say that Brunel abused them as well. You see, because when you're somebody like Jean-Luc Brunel, or a serial molester or abuser, you don't stop unless you're stopped, right? You don't just wake up one day and say, all right, I'm not a rapist anymore. That's not how it works, unfortunately. These people are wired like serial killers. This is who they are. It's part of their identity. And it doesn't just stop overnight. They have to physically be stopped and put into prison. That is the only way it stops. The two men deny any wrongdoing, But in December, Brunel was remanded in custody in Paris after being charged with multiple rapes of Roberts and a separate case of sexual harassment against an unidentified complainant. It followed dozens of women saying Brunel abused them while running an underage sex ring with Jeffrey Epstein, who committed suicide in prison in 2019, allegedly. And again, running a sex ring with Jeffrey Epstein certainly doesn't seem like a guy that was just showing up every now and then, right? Sounds like a very important piece to the puzzle. Sounds like a leadership role. Smells like a RICO case. Almost all of the accusations leveled against Brunel are from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, meaning they fall outside the 20-year limit for prosecuting sex crimes in France. So, again, there are a lot, right? A lot of these allegations certainly do fall outside of the statute of limitations. But, again, like I said, I think that we'll see more recent accusations come to the forefront now. A lot of people probably thought that their accusations would go nowhere if these girls, right? They'd come forward, this powerful model guy, modeling recruiter. Their careers will be ruined. They wouldn't get any more gigs, all of that stuff. But now that he's on the back burner and he's taken off of the chessboard, well, I think we'll see a lot more girls come forward and put it on the record what Brunel did to them or what they allege Brunel did to them. This meant that Brunel was considered untouchable by police, who nicknamed him the Ghost as he carried on living and working in the French capital, while frequently traveling abroad on scouting assignments and holidays. Boy, that's really nice, huh? Real nice. You would think that America would have put him on some kind of list and had Interpol swoop him up. But nah, for all of this time, up until about a year ago, the United States of America was way too focused on protecting Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts, it seems like, to really initiate any kind of investigation. The fact that Brunel was able to go on with his life and live and conduct business freely and travel abroad to Lord knows do what. How many girls did he abuse while he was abroad? How many poor girls in rundown villages or towns that don't have many opportunities did Brunel go to and scout for potential girls to victimize? It makes me sick to think how many of these small places he visited. We know he loved South America and Brazil. So I don't even like to think about how many people have been victimized at the hands of this sick bastard. But in November, Roberts responded to an online English language appeal by French magistrates for alleged survivors to come forward. And again, Virginia has been at the forefront of all of this, right? You know, she has really blown the doors off of it. And she's given a face to the girls who have remained faceless. And I think it's significant to just mention how going directly to the people via social media and taking the message directly to the people and out of the hands of the media who could spin it and make it whatever they want it to be was just a stroke of genius. And I really think that's what kicked this case into gear. I truly believe that's what got things going. Miss Roberts now lives in Australia but responded to the appeal, said an investigating source. She was interviewed remotely and provided considerable evidence against Brunel. So, again, she's had the receipts for how long? This could have all been stopped years and years and years ago if people would have listened about Brunel. And also, folks, what also this says is think about this. If what she says about Brunel is true, and what she says about Epstein is true, and what she says about Maxwell is true, doesn't that probably mean what she says about the rest of them? Dubin and Dershowitz and the rest of the scumbaggery crew? Don't you think that means that what she's saying about them is probably true as well? So all of these people that have been able to get off with these little canned responses like Bill Richardson and George Mitchell and, Pritzker, all of these guys that haven't been put on blast, your time is coming. Because guess what, folks? The writing is on the wall. And the authorities, obviously, are starting to take notice. She said that she was raped by Brunel in the early 2000s, including in 2001. This was a considerable breakthrough for the inquiry. So that fell within the statute of limitations, right? So, bam, that's the in. That's how they nab him. It meant that the alleged crime was well within the statute of limitations and therefore prosecutable. Officers were set to arrest Brunel in January, following further inquiries, but on December 16th was intercepted at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris with a one-way ticket to Dakar, capital of Senegal, in West Africa. A one-way ticket, huh? Yeah, because that's how rich people travel, right? They just buy one-way tickets. They don't have the money to buy both tickets at once, so yeah, we get them. We do it a la carte around here, all right? It's like going to the steakhouse and you can't afford to get the mashed potato a la carte, so you're just going to get the steak today. That's not how it works. Why was he going to Senegal on a one-way ticket? That's not concerning. That's not suspicious or anything. This led to his immediate arrest, and he was placed in custody, said the source. The multiple rape charges solely relate to the testimony of Virginia Roberts and not any of the other alleged rape victims. And that is significant because the charge, obviously, is for the only crime that is alleged to have been committed within the statute of limitations. But again, I am sure that there are more girls out there, and they're going to feel emboldened now, and we're going to see them come forward. We saw it with Epstein, we saw it with Maxwell, and we no doubtedly will see it with Brunel as well. The sexual harassment indictment is nothing to do with Epstein's case and instead relates to incidents in 2016 following a complaint by another woman who has not gone public. And you see right there, just a sexual harassment claim that she hasn't gone public with, that has been put out in public. Now, what else is coming, right? What else is coming down the pipe? I am sure that they're going to be much heavier claims. And once the people see the air of invincibility pierced for people like this, they're much more apt to come forward and go on the record and put it on wax and talk about what happened to them. The multiple rapes of Virginia Roberts, now a mother of 3 who was called Virginia Roberts before her marriage, was said to have mainly taken place at Epstein's home on the private island of Little St. James in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Roberts has produced sworn testimony saying that both Brunel and Joe Exotic of the Windsor family attacked her there. According to French law, a French citizen such as Brunel can be tried in France for offenses committed abroad. Well, there you go. See, that's another thing that, I've always said, I'm not a specialist when it comes to the legal aspect of any of this, especially French law. So him being able to be tried for crimes committed in America in France is significant. And I hope that happens, right? If they don't want to extradite him to America, at least he's going to face serious charges in his home country. Others said to have been involved in the sex ring include Epstein's co-conspirator and Serpentino friend, the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, 59, who is currently on remand in the USA after being charged with trafficking of underage girls and the enticement of minors. Prince Andrew was, like his friend the bipedal serpent, a regular visitor to Epstein's mansion flat in Paris, where many of the worst crimes against girls are said to have taken place. I mean, can you imagine the reign of destruction? Can you imagine how many people's lives were destroyed on multiple continents by these sick bastards, and they were able to slither around for all of these decades, all of these years afterwards? Well, guess what? Those days are over. The train of justice has left the station, folks, and all of these people are squarely tied to the tracks. A French judicial inquiry into Brunel's conduct and the sex ring was opened in August 2019, when prosecutors first heard allegations that Brunel and the Queen's second son shared a lover. Robert said she was forced to sleep with the Duke after being trafficked to him at least 3 times when she was 17. The Joe Exotic of the Windsor family and his 4 supporters on Twitter have consistently denied the accusations leveled by Roberts, telling the BBC in 2019, "I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever." Meanwhile, there's a picture who some morons want to act like is photoshopped. We know that's not the case. We've heard from the FBI that it's not. And we also heard from a New Zealand photographer that it's not. So I'm going to go ahead and read that New Zealand photographer's article again. We're going to do that as a bonus episode tomorrow. So maybe a few crows who are crowing, well, maybe they'll shut up. Because unless you have evidence or receipts or some sort of circumstantial evidence that you can provide, then I really don't want to hear from you, honestly, because you're just muddying the waters and getting in the way. Roberts has now told the French she was routinely raped by Brunel between the ages of 16 and 19. Brunel, who has worked with celebrities including Jerry Hall, Sharon Stone, and Monica Bellucci, is also suspected of using his contacts in the fashion industry to provide victims to Epstein and his friends. Note the word friends. Let's hear about these friends. Let's get some of these friends on wax. Let's talk about these friends, Daily Mail. The Daily Mail has done a pretty good job with this case, but I think it's time now to go deeper. I think it's time to really stir it up and see what's at the bottom of this pot. Some of these names that haven't been mentioned, like Pritzker. Some of these names that are hardly mentioned, like the Dubins. Or Bill Richardson. All of these people played a key role. And if it's good for Brunel, and it's good enough for Brunel to be put on blast and to be facing the music, then all of these people who girls were trafficked to also need to be pursued vigorously. Anyone who had any part in physically abusing anyone with Jeffrey Epstein must be pursued vigorously. He is said to have flown 12-year-old sisters from a Paris housing estate to America so they could be abused by Epstein as a birthday present. We talked about that earlier, and it's one of the most heinous things imaginable to even think about. Honestly, it makes my skin crawl when I think about it. Epstein, an old friend of Andrews and a business associate of Brunel's, committed suicide in his prison cell, allegedly, in New York on August 10, 2019, while awaiting trial for a range of offenses, including trafficking minors for sex and multiple rapes. Brunel was the founder of MC2, the model agency that prosecutors believe was used as a cover for the sex trafficking ring that Steve Mnuchin had his fingerprints all over, that he signed for, that he was part of. And then he says, well, I don't know who the Brunels were. Steve Mnuchin is another reprehensible, disgusting son of a bitch. And he's another one who needs a deep look at. Every single person, folks, who was involved here. The out-of-time evidence against Brunel comes from a number of former models who, like Roberts, have waived their anonymity to make their allegations public. New Zealander Zoe Brock has claimed in statements made to French investigators that she was abused in his Paris home in the early 90s. The Dutch model, Fizia Hoosman, who was 18 when she first stayed with Brunel, said she was raped by him in 1991. And look, why would these ladies all be lying about this? What do they have to gain? They have nothing to gain by lying about Jean-Luc Brunel raping them and assaulting them. So why would anyone think that Jean-Luc Brunel is not guilty of all of this? Husman is now one of at least 4 alleged survivors represented by Anne-Claire Lejeune, a Paris barrister who said Brunel being in custody was a huge relief because their complaints now take on meaning. 100%. It gives justification to these other girls like Thisia who have come forward and put Brunel on blast for his conduct. And now, Brunel's going to have to pay the price for that conduct. Sigrid Macaulay, Virginia Roberts' lawyer, confirmed her client was cooperating with the French inquiry and had offered evidence. Macaulay said, "My clients and I are delighted by the French prosecution. This is a sign that the investigation by the French authorities is advancing. Jean-Luc Brunel played a key role in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring." Those are Sigrid Macaulay's words, okay? Played a key role in Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking ring. Wasn't just a bystander, wasn't just a groomer, a key role, folks, okay? Leadership role. Virginia Roberts, in particular, my oldest client, made it a personal struggle to hold the people who assaulted so many young girls to account. She is grateful to the French authorities for taking Jean-Luc Brunel's behavior very seriously. Marianne Abgral, Brunel's lawyer, said, "My client formally disputes the facts of which he is accused. He is very upset that his name is dragged through the mud without moderation." Oh, well, is he now? In that case, we'll just stop talking about him because, there's no decades-long allegations leveled against him. I would be so hesitant to talk about this case if it was happening in real time, folks, because this is the kind of shit that ruins people's lives if it's not correct, right? If you start leveling these kinds of charges against people and you're doing it out of left field and there's no evidence to support it, that's a big problem. But that's not what's going on here. We're not talking about 1 girl or 2 girls or 3 girls. We're talking about dozens and dozens and hundreds of girls that have all come out and said that these people have abused them. And it was habitual. And it went on for decades. And nobody did a damn thing about it. So now, when someone like Brunel acts like, well, how dare anybody be talking about this and dragging my good name through the mud? Bro, your name's been dragged through the mud since the late 80s. The difference now is someone's doing something about it. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. And to everybody who has supported the podcast recently, thank you folks so much. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow, and we'll get it all going once again because I'm sure there will be more lunacy in the world of Jeffrey Epstein to cover.